Here we'll get some more practice with writing claims and deciding whether or not to reject the null hypothesis. In this question it says a majority of people in the 18 to 29 age bracket voted in the last presidential election. The p-value is 0.097 and the level of significance is 0.1. On the right I've written out 3 steps. Let's begin with the first step, writing the claim. Our claim says that a majority of people voted in the last presidential election. And the key word here is majority. Now, what a majority means is more than 50%. Now, since we are talking about a percentage, that means we are talking little p. So if we had to select a symbol to use, we would use the p and not the mu, because mu is used for means and p is used for percentages. The sign that we use after the p depends on the wording of the question. When they say the word majority, that means more than 50%. Since we see a more than in the question, that means our sign is greater than. We'll draw a box around that. Now, since we have 50% in our question, let's not write 50%, let's change that to a decimal. And so instead of saying 50%, we'll say 0.50. Therefore, we can say our claim is that little p is greater than 0.50. Now, notice that greater than fell in the alternate hypothesis zone. It is H1, so we'll write an H1 next to that also. That takes care of the first step. Now, the second step is to write the opposite. We still use the letter P, but now instead of greater than, we say less than 50% or 0.50. Since we already have an alternate hypothesis, we need a null hypothesis. But let's remember that in the null hypothesis, you must have an equal sign somewhere within the claim. All of the null hypothesis symbols have an equal sign somewhere. Therefore, we don't simply say less, we say less than or equal to. Some internet homework applications will just say equal to rather than less than or equal to. So if you're trying to select your correct answer, but you don't see less than or equal to, but instead you see equal to, it's okay just to say equal to for the purposes of the web checkers. Now, let's look at step 3. We compare our big P value against alpha. Now, that's different from the little p. The big P value is given in the question here. The big P value is 0.097. And our alpha was 0.1. Now we compare these values. Now, if our big P is less than or equal to alpha, that means we would have strong enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis and cross it out. If our big P is greater than alpha, that means we don't have strong enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis. That means we would have to keep the null hypothesis and not support the alternate. If we look at our values here, we can see big P is 0.097 and alpha is 0.1. Therefore, big P is less than alpha, and we go to our first option. Now, that means we can cross out the null because we have strong enough evidence to eliminate it. And now all that's left is the alternate hypothesis. So we box this in to show that it's the only possibility left. Now notice that the claim is also the alternate hypothesis. So this also means that we are not just rejecting the null, we are also supporting the claim. If P was greater than alpha, that means we would not support the claim. Now let's restate this decision in terms of the original claim. There are 4 things we want to say. We want to say something about the evidence. Say something about whether you're rejecting the null or failing to reject the null. Go ahead and restate the claim. And mention the significance level also. So if we were to rewrite this, we would say that there is sufficient evidence at the level of significance of 0.1. And we should also mention that we are rejecting the null hypothesis and supporting the claim. And let's say what the claim is again. The claim at the beginning of the question was that a majority of people voted in the last presidential election. So our 4 ingredients are: number 1, talk about the evidence; number 2, talk about whether we rejected or failed to reject; number 3, restate the claim; and number 4, mention the significance level. You can say these in any order you want, as long as they're still there.